At 88, Vanessa Redgrave reveals the 4 people she loved the most. The older I get, the less I think about awards, and the more I think about faces. Someone asked me recently, Vanessa, after all these years, who are the people you love the most? I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't know, but because I suddenly realized I wasn't remembering movie premieres. I was remembering cups of tea, quiet rehearsals, and conversations after everyone else had gone home. When people look at my career, they see decades of films and standing ovations. I see 4 people whose presence quietly shaped my life in ways audiences never could. The first is Franco Nero. Most people expect me to tell the dramatic version of our story. They remember the headlines, the years apart, all the speculation. Funny thing is, those are the parts I barely think about anymore. What stays with me are the ordinary moments. I remember waiting between scenes while everyone else rushed around us. Franco never seemed interested in being the loudest man on the set. That always impressed me. In an industry where everyone is trying to be noticed, he was perfectly comfortable simply listening. I noticed how he treated everyone exactly the same. Whether someone was carrying lights or directing the film, they received the same smile, the same respect. That tells you everything you need to know about a person. Years passed. Life carried us in different directions. That happens more often than people imagine in this business. Then somehow, life brought us together again. I remember thinking how strange it was that nothing felt awkward. We simply continued talking as though no time had disappeared at all. Very few relationships survive silence like that. Ours somehow did. And I think that's far more remarkable than any romantic headline ever printed. Whenever people ask me about great actresses, one name always finds its way into my thoughts: Maggie Smith. She possessed something impossible to imitate. You'd watch her perform and think, surely that couldn't have been difficult. Then you'd try doing it yourself. Only then would you realize how extraordinary she truly was. I always admired how prepared she arrived. Some actors like discovering everything during filming. Maggie somehow seemed to arrive already understanding the soul of the character. That confidence wasn't arrogance. It came from respect for the work. Off camera, though, she was wonderfully mischievous. Not loud, not theatrical, just incredibly sharp. Sometimes she'd whisper one sentence so quietly that half the room wouldn't hear it. 5 seconds later, everyone would burst into laughter. I'd find myself laughing too, wondering why nobody else could ever be that naturally funny. As the years passed, we didn't need constant phone calls or endless dinners to remain close. Growing older teaches you something unexpected. Real friendships don't disappear because months pass. They simply wait. Every conversation with Maggie felt like picking up a book where you'd left the bookmark years before. When I think about her now, I don't picture award ceremonies. I hear her laugh, and somehow that feels much more important. There was another person who changed me in an entirely different way. Franco Zeffirelli. Working with Franco wasn't always easy. Actually, sometimes it was exhausting. He expected more than you believed you could give. At the time, I occasionally wondered why one tiny scene required so much discussion. Years later, I understood. He wasn't chasing perfection because of pride. He simply loved storytelling that deeply. I discovered something watching him. The smallest adjustment could completely transform a performance. One pause, one glance, one step across a room. Suddenly, an ordinary scene became unforgettable. That's an extraordinary gift. Even after leaving his productions, I caught myself hearing his voice in my mind. Look again. Listen more carefully. Don't rush. Those lessons stayed with me far longer than any script. Directors often receive credit for finished films. What audiences rarely see is how quietly they shape an actor for decades afterward. Franco certainly shaped me, more than he probably ever realized. Then there's someone whose honesty always made me smile. Glenda Jackson. Life becomes much simpler around people who never pretend. Glenda was exactly the same in private as she was in public. If she agreed with you, you knew. If she didn't, you knew that too. There was something refreshing about that. We belonged to a generation constantly moving between theater stages and film sets. One month we'd cross paths in rehearsal. Another year, we'd unexpectedly meet again somewhere completely different. And every single time, the conversation began as though we'd spoken yesterday. People imagine actors spend their free time discussing Shakespeare or cinema. Honestly, most of our conversations were about ordinary life, family, travel, growing older, the little frustrations everyone experiences. Those ordinary conversations became precious without either of us realizing it. Looking back, I think honesty is one of the rarest qualities anyone can possess. Glenda had it naturally. You never wondered where you stood. There's enormous comfort in that.